Hey procrastinators! Today I'm sharing 3 ways to use up that ribbon that you hoard. Or is it just me that hoards all the ribbon? Please tell me I'm not alone. Recently I had a conversation with another YouTuber about how she'd gotten rid of all of her ribbon and no longer goes to the craft store so she can avoid buying things that she doesn't really need or use just because it's on sale or on clearance. I am a total sucker for clearance deals, and one of my super weaknesses is those small rolls of ribbon at Hobby Lobby for like 33 cents. I will admit I don't use them all that much, as I really should. So this got me to thinking I should challenge myself to use them and see what kind of creative ways I could use them. So I plan to do a bit of a series on this. This is the first video with 3 ways. I don't know what sort of time frame this will span over since it is the holiday season right now and I am trying to do a Christmas card series. However, I shot this video a few weeks ago and I thought I should edit it and get it up before I forgot all the details. So as you can see, the first way to use your ribbon is as a background. I applied double-sided adhesive to my card front. I used my Xyron for this, but any strong double-sided adhesive would work here. I then started laying down my ribbon. I didn't want to bore you with making you watch the whole card front though. It's a pretty easy process. Just make sure you lay your pieces right up next to each other so that there are no gaps in between them, or you will have exposed adhesive and a sticky card front. No one wants a sticky card front. Once you have covered the card front, just cut off the excess ribbon hanging off the edges of your card. Next I took Simon Says Stamps Birthday Mix 1 stamp set and I stamped it out in Memento Tuxedo black ink. Then I cut it out with the coordinating dies. I just have to say that this stamp and others like it are just brilliant. I picked out 3 of the small sentiments from the stamp set: Happy Birthday, 1 year older, and Make a Wish, and sandwiched 2 strands of the skinny yellow ribbon that I used on the card front in between the sentiment pieces and a piece of foam tape. Then I adhered them to the front of my card. I wrapped the excess ribbon around the back of my card front. I thought this way of adhering my sentiments added a nice touch of interest to an already fun card. To finish the card, I used score tape to adhere my card front to my card base. For my second card, I'm showing how to accent an embossing folder with ribbon. I used one of the We Are Memory Keeper's geometric 6x6 embossing folders. This comes in a set of 2. I then used Broken China Distress ink to lightly ink over the card front panel to give it a bit of color. However, it didn't show up real well on camera. Next, I cut pieces of ribbon just slightly longer than what I needed and applied 1/8 inch score tape to the back of them. I had tried a few different methods of adhering the strips of ribbon, and this one was the best. As you can see in my video, there are strips of score tape on the back edges of my card panel that I kind of work around. That is one method that I had tried that didn't work so well. I didn't leave the backing paper off those strips on the back because I didn't want my card panel to stick to my glass mat and have to fight with it sticking the entire video. I think the lattice effect on this card turned out so beautiful. Once done applying the ribbon to the card front panel, I applied several strips of 1/2 inch score tape to the back of the panel and then adhered it to my card base. The panel buckled a little under the pressure of the ribbon. I probably should have used heavier cardstock, or maybe I shouldn't have pulled so tight on the ribbon. Not sure which, or maybe it was a combo of both. Either way, the score tape and applying it to the Nita 110-pound card base fixed that right up. Off camera, I stamped a butterfly from Gina K's Butterfly Kisses stamp and die set with the coordinating Foil Mates add-on. I used Stampin' Up's Tempting Turquoise to stamp the butterfly, and then I foiled it in silver deco foil. I also stamped Thinking of You from the same stamp set and die cut it with Spellbinder's Vintage Pierced Banner die set. I inked the banner piece in Salty Ocean and Black Soot Distress inks. I popped both the butterfly and the banner up on foam tape. Lastly, to finish the card off, I had to add some bling. I may have went a little overboard here, but once I got started, I just couldn't stop. I don't usually add this much bling to a card, I promise. What do you think? Is it too much? Or are you the type that thinks there is never too much bling? Let me know in the comments. For the third and final card for this video, I am using the ribbon as a focal element in conjunction with dies. I had these fun graceful brackets dies from Spellbinders, and I thought that they would make a fun corset type card. I wasn't really going for a realistic looking corset here, just the hint or an idea of a corset. I made my first cuts a ½ inch from each edge of my card panel, and then the second cuts were 1½ inches from each edge. I made the marks on my panel with a pencil before I started die cutting so everything would be even. I also want to address this before we get too far. Some of you are probably wondering what the deal is with the anniversary card. As many of you know, my anniversary was in October, and I already made my husband a card for that. When I started making this card, I realized that it was starting to look a lot like my wedding dress. The colors were our wedding colors, our theme was damask, I had a corset dress. I made this before I made my husband's card, but I felt this card was too girly to give him, so I told him that I made my own anniversary card this year, but the catch was that he had to stamp the inside. I pulled out a bunch of lovey-dovey type stamps. I don't really have many anniversary themed stamps, and I left him alone in my craft room. I know, scary, right? At the end of the video, I will show you how well he did. I was quite proud of him. Okay, back to the making of the card. I used antique linen Distress Oxide to ink blend on these panels. I covered them completely. I dried them thoroughly with my heat tool, and then I used my anti-static powder tool generously over them. It's important to make sure that they are dry for this next step, since oxides have that pigment property to them, and they are slow drying. You see me sticking my panels on a very well used and loved Sizzix sticky grid sheet. I did this to make sure the next step is easier. It held my panels in place while stamping, so they didn't shift around on me, and they stayed perfectly aligned. You also may notice that I have a piece of post-it note tape over my fingers as I place the panels on the sticky grid. I did this because I had already applied that anti-static powder tool to my panels, and I did not want to get the oils from my fingers on the panels at this point. Okay, back to the card. I used a Stampendous stamp called Ornate Border to stamp in Versamark ink and clear heat emboss over it in Ranger Clear embossing powder. Take note that I removed the panels from the sticky grid before applying the embossing powder. This may be obvious, but if you have never heard of the sticky grid sheets before, they are exactly like what they sound, a reusable sticky sheet with grid lines, so the embossing powder would have stuck to it. I usually use this sheet when I'm using my wreath builder, but it is handy for other things too, as you can see. I then finish off the emboss resist technique with ink blending the entire panel with aged mahogany Distress Oxide. After I finished with my panels, I decided it would be fun to dig out some scrap paper from our wedding invites to use as a panel behind these 3 ink blended panels. The idea was that it would show behind the ribbon in the corset pieces. It didn't really work out that way though, as my ribbon was too thick and my corset pieces were not spaced out far enough. Live and learn, right? I struggled with exactly how I was going to lace these corset pieces. Do I do it on the card? Can I do it without it being on the card? I finally settled with it having to be attached to the card first, but that certainly didn't make it easy to do. You have to have tweezers and more dexterous hands than I have. I cut a lot of that out because it was kind of a hot mess with hands that tremor a little bit like mine. I don't think anyone wanted to watch that. After that, I cut a black card panel to place behind it, and then I attached all of that to my Nina Solar White 110-pound card base. To finish off the front of the card, I cut a heart out of pearlized vellum from the Spellbinders Vines of Passion die set. It has a gorgeous vine heart, but I only needed a solid heart, and I didn't have any other solid heart dies. I could have cut one on my Cricut, but I didn't feel like dealing with all of that at the time. I also cut several of the On Your and Anniversary sentiments from Tonic Craft Kit number 17. However, for the On Your, I chopped off the Y to make it On Our. I layered both sentiments up to give them some nice dimension, and then I carefully adhered them to the vellum heart. To attach the heart to the front of the card, I carefully and strategically placed itty-bitty bits of foam adhesive only behind the letters of my sentiment. To add the final finishing touch, I used a Nuvo Aqua Shimmer pen in glitter gloss to the sentiment. As promised, here is my husband's stamping artwork. I will cherish it forever. What do you think? Have you ever let your husbands or significant others loose in your craft room? I'd love to hear how it went if you did. I hope you enjoyed this video and that it inspires you to use up some of that ribbon that may be collecting dust. Don't forget to like and share this video if you enjoyed it, and I always enjoy hearing from you in the comments. Have a great day!